So, I have a wonderful Hiddush on the Mishnayot and the way information is organized in the Mishnayot. So here's a question, and it's a question I always have. The first Mishnah in Masechet Berachot, מאמתי קוראים את שמע בערבית? בשעה שהכהנים נכנסים לאכול בתרומתם. From what time do we start saying Kriyat Shema? And the answer is we start saying Kriyat Shema from the time that the Kohanim start eating the terumah. Boy, that's a lot to unpack. Like if I was organizing this Mishnah, I would start by discussing there's an obligation to say Kriyat Shema twice a day. Shene'emar b'shokbecha v'kumecha. And then I would discuss the different times of the day. And I wouldn't say Misha'ah she'kohanim nechasim le'echol b'trumatan. I would say Misha'ah tzet ha'kochavim. Right before I even get to Misha'ah she'kohanim nechasim le'echol b'trumatan, I would, discuss what that's about. Kohanim, which Kohanim? Why are Kohanim nechasim le'echol b'trumatan? When are they nechasim le'echol b'trumatan? I mean, we know the answer to that question. A Kohen that was tameh, and he made tevilah, and after he made tevilah, he needs ha'aref shemesh, and the ha'aref shemesh is misha'at zet ha'kochavim, he's tahor, at least la'inyan achilat terumah. I mean, there's a lot of information there, but it's not just Masechet Berachot. I mean, almost all the Masechtot are like that. יסיעות השבת, שתיים שאין ארבע בפנים ושתיים שאין ארבע בחוץ. יסיעות השבת? I mean, how is that a way to start Masechet Shabbat? Start explaining there's lamitet melachot. One of the melachot is osa'am l'rshut. חמישה דברים חייבים, מסכת חלה. חמישה דברים חייבים בחלה. החיטים והסעורים והכוסמים ישבו על שואב לשיפון. הרי אלו חייבים בחלה. What type of way is that to start Masechet Hallah? Start by explaining that there's a special mitzvah le'afrish hallah terumah min ha'isa. Explain, and then say, and what's hayav b'hallah? Not every isa, but isa of these hamisha minim. We can go through the entire Mishnayot, and look at it that way. So that's the question. I think the question is clear. For example, the way Rambam organizes the information is so much more efficient. The way Rambam builds every single topic, the organization, it seems greater than the organization of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So what are we supposed to say? That Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Chas v'Shalom, didn't know how to organize information. But how can we say that? I mean, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rambam speaks about him, and the Chachamim speak about him in the most superlative terms. They compare him to Moshe Rabbeinu, Chochmah, Ve'osher, B'makom Echad, and the Yehus of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and the wealth of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So to say that the organization of the Mishnah was other than absolutely perfect is a bit difficult. So the question is, why are the Mishnayot organized in this way? And I think I have the answer based upon the golden doves. And it's as follows. We said that the Torah Shebichtav is the interpreted system, and the Torah Shebe'al Peh is the interpreter system. And we also said that the interpreter system can never be an interpreted system. Here's the thing. If I'm speaking English to you, and I say, the squirrel ran up the tree to get an acorn, right? So now in your mind, you're understanding my words. You recognize the words. And you understand that there was this cute little furry creature called a squirrel, and it saw an acorn on the top of the tree, and it went to get the acorn. I mean, you understand all that, right? I'm using these words. These words are conveying a message. Words, language, can be an interpretor system if it's recognized by the person to whom the language is spoken. For example, if somebody was to speak Japanese to me, I wouldn't understand the word because I don't speak Japanese. So for an interpretor system to actually be an interpretor system, it has to be recognized, right? So if I speak words to you, let's say you don't speak Hebrew, and I say, Hasna'i ala es limso acorn. I don't know how to say acorn in Hebrew, right? Now, if you don't speak Hebrew, those words are useless, right? So you would need an interpretor system, namely English, to interpret the words for you. But that means that, as a matter of fact, that was not the Hebrew sentence, was not an interpretor system for you because it didn't convey any meaning. Here's the thing. The Jewish people, for them, the Torah Shebe'al Peh was always the interpretor system. It was always recognized. When Rabbeinu HaKadosh said, Ematei korin et Shema be'arvit, every Jew understood what Kriyat Shema is, and that you say Kriyat Shema twice a day. And that was recognized. The same way when I say this, the squirrel ran up the tree to eat an acorn and to get an acorn, you all recognize those words, right? And when Rabbeinu HaKadosh says, people recognize that. We were a living nation with a living tradition, and people all knew that Kohanim eat teruma after having been defiled upon the passage of a certain amount of time from sunset. They understood that, Seta Kochavim. So we today need to explain what it means, Mishat Seta Kochavim, because we no longer speak the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Our lay mental has changed. Our minds no longer recognize our own language. The problem is that with the Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Chas v'Shalom, Rabbeinu HaKadosh wrote a beautiful, perfect, pristine, pure, dense version of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, which was accepted by all the Chachamim. But when he wrote it, he didn't have a group of Ameh Ha'ares in mind. He wrote it for a living nation, right? And Am Yisrael understood what it means. Yesiot Shabbat She'tayim She'en Al Ba Bifnim U'Shtayim She'en Al Ba B'Chosei. Understood. Yes, of course. Hasam L'Rshut is one of the Melachot Shabbat. They understood that, and they understood what the Yesiot Shabbat is referring to, or Hamishta Devarim Hayavim Mahala, or Aisel Ma'alot B'Mikvaot. They understood that. That was part of the. That was part of their lay mental. Now today, when we study Mishnayot, we no longer speak the language. So we need a lot of the mefarshim, and I use it myself. When I study Mishnayot, I use Kehati. I find the Kehati to be outstanding, right? And what the Kehati is doing is, he is speaking to a public that no longer speaks the language. But that's a tragedy. Why don't we speak the language anymore? Why don't we recognize the Mishnayot? Why don't we recognize the sentences? Why do we need Kehati? Right? Ideally, we would look at Harambam. Harambam basically, he doesn't really explain the Mishnayot so much. He kind of gives some of the Mekorot. He does explicate some of the Mishnayot to a certain extent, but it's not a methodical approach to Mishnayot like the Kehati. The Kehati is really a methodical approach. He did an outstanding job and an outstanding service for Am Yisrael, because the fact is, we don't speak the language anymore. So that's the way Rabbeinu HaKadosh organized the Torah Shebe'al Peh. He organized the Torah Shebe'al Peh based upon the premise, it's a lay mental. Guys, you should know how to speak this language. If you don't know how to speak this language, there's something wrong with you. But I'm not going to organize the Mishnayot. I'm not going to organize the Torah Shebe'al Peh as if although it's anything other than an interpretor system.